The answer to that question is no. Gloves are coming off.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that's part of the, there's curses and there's blessings to having Jim on. Having a filter is not one of his blessings. The guy just says whatever he thinks needs to say.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah,
that's what we're here for.
It's the best we can do.
Right.
Jeremy Jones joins the podcast. Jeremy, how you doing?
Good. How y'all doing?
Doing well. I guess let's start this out in the beginning. Let's promote what you guys did last night. You guys did a one pocket ratings. Why don't you give Jeremy, we'll start with you. Why don't you talk about last night? And I know you said you had a couple of regrets. You said you were thinking of players that you should have had on there, but let's hear. Do you think you got the list right?
I think the list was pretty good. Always going to be opinions, of course, but I think it kind of rekindled me thinking about one pocket. I used to think about it like 24/7, I think. But last night after the show, there's just a few players, Shannon Dalton, Cliff Joyner, even though those guys don't play, they certainly should always be mentioned in the class when you're talking about one pocket. But it was a lot of fun. I'd like to actually hear one day have some of the guys off the list and hear what they have to say about maybe what their list is or where they think they should be at. But yeah, it was a lot of fun last night.
Mike, yeah. What you got?
We'll put that fire under their ass. Don't worry about it. We'll get them on and on the record. And it's funny because I asked a lot of these guys what their top five is, and you'll get like complete opposites of the spectrum where you'll have like a Scott who's like, I'm for sure number two in the world, no doubt. And then you'll have like the Chip and these other guys who are very humble and like, no, I don't really want to give my top five. So it's been very interesting, but it was a lot of fun, and it was great having you two gentlemen on last night to give us credibility and personality and insight that us donkeys on the rail can't go and provide. So we appreciate it, and I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Well, for anybody who doesn't follow your page, first off, you got to get over there and follow Windows Open. But give us a quick rundown of what your goal was in creating the list and then having the video last night for it.
I just got a lot of passion for one pocket, and I love the banter, and I think we see it in all sports where there's power rankings. Like in the NFL, you'll get it week to week, and I think if pool wants to be considered or get the respect of being more of a proper sport, then things like that have to be added to the media side of it, I think. But getting players' input and people from the industry, their opinions on it is key. It can't just be, Joe Blow's opinion on it. So I think it has to go hand in hand. And at least in the last couple of years, there's been a good amount of guys who have been more open to getting on the record and having a microphone on them. Some guys still feel uncomfortable about it. But I think as people go and promote their own brands and who they are, they'll have more fans, which in turn will go and tune in to whatever's going on, whatever tournament it may be, regionally or nationally or globally. So I think in the grand scheme of things, it's just all going to go and help grow the game.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say that pool's always been a who wins sport. We always recognize the winner, but I think we need to recognize what goes on besides the guy winning, and I think a list of 10 players or 20 players in any of the disciplines means something. Pool's
Sure.
been a top-heavy sport forever, and you string along and you go top 10s all year. That's a hell of a year, and we don't see that in our sport a lot of times. So, the Shane Van Bonings and those guys are always going to get put on the posters, but we can't forget about the other players. So that means a lot when it comes to those lists.
For sure. All right. Well, as you guys can see, we have Jeremy Jones here. Big surprise at this point since we're 5 minutes in and, he's right here. So we're going to be talking all things Mosconi Cup. There hasn't been really all that much that's happened in the last week. In fact, I can't even really think of a major event that happened anywhere besides the finishing up of the European Championships. Am I wrong there? Did nothing really happen in the U.S. for big events, right?
Well, they had a nice event in Cincinnati where a few guys played last week, but it kind of was the tail end of about 2.5 months of what I think is maybe the greatest string of events that I've ever seen in the U.S. as far as quality of fields and quality of events.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. And unfortunately, this was I guess the last stretch that you're talking about, basically from the Diamond Las Vegas on. That was right when pool shut down last year. In fact, right in between the Diamond Las Vegas Open and the Predator World 10 Ball was when the world kind of went crazy and shut down. So we were right on the cusp of that last year, and then it got shut down. So, well, we got it this year at least. So that's good. Lots of amazing events in there. So since we don't really have all that much to talk about as far as recent events, we are going to go Mosconi Cup heavy today, which we had Alex Laley on a couple weeks ago when he finished up his European side of things, and now we get Jeremy Jones for the American side of things. So, Jeremy, I guess take us through. Starting out, you got your 5 players. What do you think of your team that you've assembled as a 50,000 view?
As a what? Excuse me.
Just a big view. Big view. What do you like? What do you think of the team?
Well, I love the team. I think we put together a team that's there to win. Not a bunch of guys looking to have a showing or pick up a paycheck. And you can say that, I guess, because I've been there. I've felt that from some players before, not only as a player but as being involved on the management side. So I love our team. Like I said, Earl messaged me again this morning. Very, very, a lot of desire in those messages I felt. And then a lot of desire from the rest of the guys to play with Earl. So I think the mix is a lot better than people may give it credit.
Anyone got someone?
Yeah, you mentioned top 10 performances and how tough it is to go and string those along. You're up against a guy who's been consistent all year long in Albin Ocean. What game planning, if any, can you go and do to maybe offset his skill set? I mean, he seems to just arrive in big moments and in big spots. What is it that you guys do, if anything, or is it just more of we're just going to prepare on our own and whatever they do, they do?
Well, you hit the nail right on the head there. As far as the end of it, actually last night, I got a couple of close friends that aren't on the pro side of things, but they certainly know the players. And I was messaging. We were talking about pool last night, and I said that there's a few that I always believed that champions from years ago would be champions today. I think, but there's a few players in this world today that have taken greatness to another level and combined it with consistency. And Albin Ocean is one of those guys I brought up last night that has done that. I think there's a new level of pool, at least for the upper echelon guys, than we've ever seen. So hats off to him and of course, some guys on our side that are doing the same thing. I think Shane's playing the best he's ever played. I know that sounds crazy, but I really do believe that. But as far as us, I mean, if we sit there and get all involved with Albin Ocean or Jason Shaw or Kachi or any of those guys, well, I think we're missing out. I think we just got to prepare for ourselves. And then, as the event goes, you start to think about combinations of things and you can see how guys are playing. But if you bring up a guy like Albin, well, he could play a bad day one, and I don't think that would affect Alex Laley at all. It wouldn't affect me at all anyways. I wouldn't go into day 2 saying, man, well, here's my question mark with Albin. Everybody can have a bad day. So there's going to be a couple of players on that team that I don't think are going to make many waves for Alex or for myself. But then there are some other players that, you can look at on day 1 and day 2 and maybe start to figure some things out. So prior to the Mosconi Cup, Mike, besides his name coming up, it's not going to be any kind of threat. That's for sure.
Okay. Panozzo?
Yeah, I guess what I was wondering is, you talk about having this team and trying to put together the right pairings and things like that. Are you guys going to get a chance to get together at all before you fly over?
Not as a whole. We want to make sure we don't lose anybody to COVID. We had that last year. So, of course, we're going to have some of it, though, which we kind of Shane's always been kind of like Shane by himself a little bit when we do train. Of course, the camaraderie and some other things, you can't replace that stuff. Same thing with Earl. When Shane and I talked about Earl being on the team, what we're going to do, what we're going to plan, because Earl will take care of himself. He's probably hit more balls than anybody on both teams. But Skylar's actually coming in tomorrow here to my house. He doesn't live but a few hours away, so he's going to come in for a few days. Chris Robinson, of course, only 20 minutes away. So we've gotten together some. We're going to get together again while Sky's in town and continue on until we leave. But for the most part, no, we can't get together as a group. But we're going about 8 days early. So
Yeah. So that when you're going to use all your time to figure out what your pairings are for doubles?
Yeah. I mean, the curriculum. I think you get one free doubles where you can play a team twice, or at least that's how it used to be. So you're not going to be able to play a doubles twice. So there's going to be some combinations. There's going to be some rhythm and stuff involved. The beautiful thing is I think we have a couple guys, 2 to 3 guys, that we can mix with any of the other players. And I think we can mix all of them, Mike. But, there are preferred matchups, I think, without having a crystal ball and seeing what's really going to happen. You take your best educated guess and go with it.
Jim, what you got?
Yeah, you mentioned Shane. I mean, obviously, I've been Shane Ian for the last decade, more than the last decade. He's the one constant factor that has been in Team USA throughout the last decade. He's now going to be the vice captain. I mean, I might be completely wrong, but I kind of get the feeling he's almost been a little bit like that unofficially for quite a large chunk of the last 10 years. Is there more on his shoulders now, or is this just a kind of role that he's kind of always unofficially fulfilled anyway?
Good question. And more will go on his shoulders. It'll be more of, he knows I'm coming to him. Before, Shane was somebody that would, he was more about quality on his input, I guess, than quantity. He would give us some very important points here and there, and he's always paying attention. The one thing that I think Shane has a better feeling about being labeled, the assistant captain or more of an official title, is having a little more control outside of that arena. And not saying control, the guys don't need control. Like I said, these are going to be a bunch of prepared guys, but just to make sure that, his advice away from the playing table may be as valuable as his advice on the playing table. And if anybody knows him and the way he trains and the way he looks at training, I bet there'd be a lot of people who like to get in his head for that kind of stuff. So, him being a little more free and knowing that, hey, it's my place to say something and it's my place to be heard. I think that has a lot to do with it. And like I said, he always gives us quality nuggets, Jim. So I don't think he'll be bashful in this point. And I think as a whole, it's going to keep him even more engaged. So I think it's a good thing. And I think it's, he was always that guy that, when Johan and I were together, we talked about Shane as far as being a cornerstone there on the player side of things. He's been there again the last couple of years doing that, but I think even more so this year.
Okay. And you mentioned that Earl kind of takes care of himself. I guess if anything has to be said to get Earl, I don't know, back in shape, if you see that he's maybe just a little bit off out there, will that be Shane then that will do that? Or is that something that, because I think the dynamic between them is quite good. I think there's a small percentage of players on the planet that Earl really, really listens to. And I think Shane is one of those guys, kind of thing.
Well, I totally agree. And, whether he's earned it on the table or what, however, but one thing that people don't give credit to Earl is he's a super sharp guy. He pays attention. A lot of people hear his words only when he's at the table. So you don't get to really hear the best of Earl at times, or at least what that brain has. So he recognizes greatness and he recognizes no accident. So he's gonna trust Shane. I'm sure a lot of people would, and I think the good fortunate thing, even though when Earl got picked, I think there was a video of of me and him that kind of surfaced from a few years ago. But, you know, me and Earl have always been really tight. After that happened the following day, we apologized to each other and we moved on. And you know, I spent a lot of time with Earl. I played a lot of doubles with Earl and the Moscone. And I think he's got two guys that he can trust in. And I think he's super excited knowing that our players are head over heels to play with, you know, arguably the greatest of all time.
Yep. I think Greg Hogan has a great question in the comments. So we'll throw this up here. And his question is, do you think co-captain duties will affect his match play at all? It seems like a lot to deal with and not just being a player. So basically, what do you think having Shane be a co-captain is going to do to his performance?
I think it'll heighten his performance. Like I said, I think it'll keep him engaged. I think, you know, I wish we could have gone to Russia. I wish we could have gone some places like we did the last few years. That camaraderie goes a long ways, and now that camaraderie puts him in a different position that I think he really wants that. He really wants that challenge. And, you know, I wasn't on or involved in a lot of losing teams that Shane was on. I did watch. I did go in person and see him. I see a better player and I see a better mind. And I think it's just going to do wonders for our team.
And so kind of branching off of that, as far as the decisions that are made from Shane, of course, Joey was the co-captain last year, and you had the team that you had last year. And I think the biggest surprise, if you would ask just about any U.S. fan, is the Earl pick. I think I personally didn't see that coming. I don't know too many people who did. How much of a decision was that between you and Shane, and how much of that was Shane basically saying, I want Earl on the team? Because we all know Earl is basically Shane's hero when it comes to pool. So how much of that was his decision? How much of it was your decision?
Well, it was my final decision. I mean, you know, that's the way I looked at it. You know, Shane brought it up to me first, and honestly, Emily Frazier, we all talked about it as well. A lot of people don't give her credit a little more than they should, maybe, when it comes to paying attention to things. But anyways, when Shane brought it up to me first, and then some things were discussed, you know, I was like, hey, I need some time to think, you know. So I told Shane that. And the more I thought about it, the more I loved it. You know, I'm always about pool. I'm always about those youngsters. I'm always about those players out there putting in the time. And, you know, Earl hasn't played as much as some guys this year, but he's played some big events. He's played well. But, you know, I get back to what my job description is. And my job description is to go out there and win the cup. And just pretty point blank that I think Earl's going to win points. And that's what we need to win the cup, is to win points. So, you know, I wouldn't say Shane pressed it on me at all. I think Shane was more like me the more he thought about it. Because, I mean, we tossed around a lot of names. We could talk about an hour's worth of different players that had a chance to make the team. And when it come down to it, I think Earl has as good a chance as or better chance than all those unfortunate players that didn't make the team to get points. So I think he's got the high enough gear to get there. If he reaches that gear, I think it raises our players and our team level up tremendously. And, you know, to answer your question, I think it was my final decision, to be honest with you.
Gotcha.
Let's talk risk reward. You know, no one's going to argue that Earl has the capability of winning points for you, and has a gear that can be a difference maker. You know, the big concern with everyone, players and fans alike, obviously, is how do you prevent him from going off the rails? You talk about him being his own person. He kind of watches himself. You get into that arena with 3,000 people, or you get into the press conference the day before, and the needles are going to start flying.
Jim, behave yourself.
How do you keep from, you know, from going off the rails and having that impact the other players on the team?
Well, It's kind of like this, in my opinion. Anyways, I think Earl needs to be heard. I think he wants to be heard a little bit as well. I think it's deserving. It's just a matter of, what you do to make how the tone gets set for that kind of situation. I'm going to tell Earl, hey, speak freely. Don't feel like you have to be confined. Be yourself. That's what I would do anyways, and that's what I kind of expect to do. Of course, I'll go over with him as far as the negative part of things, and just like we've been messaging, we're in the finals of the biggest tournament in the world, and if you're in the finals, how would you prepare? And positive is a big part of that. So it ain't always going to be perfect, that's for sure. But as long as we don't get to extremes, we'll be just fine. Just like with Earl, I want to hear from Earl. I want the guys to hear from Earl, and that's the one thing about Earl is sometimes we get the connotation that we don't always like, of course. But there's a huge upside to that as well. So I want to take a chance at a vocal Earl. I think that can go a long ways for our team.
Yeah, vocal Earl is good, and I don't mind that as much. I guess one of my bigger concerns is his impact on the other players on the team, because he's been known in the past to berate his own teammates and their performances and their choices and things like that. And that can really bring your team down. How do you prevent him from doing that? As far as in the arena, he's going to be Earl, and I don't even really have that big a problem with that. I'm more worried about the locker room.
Well, we had a couple of talks with Earl prior, and it seems like a very humble Earl in that regard. Emotions play a big part of what goes on out there and what goes on in the practice room. Maybe, we got a couple of players, Tyler and Chris, that maybe don't have as thick a skin as some others just because of time out playing with the professionals. But at the same time, they're very level-headed guys. They grew up knowing Earl and knowing what's possible. But at the same time, I've heard nothing but so much positive from them guys that I think they're tougher than you think. I played with Earl back in the day in his heyday, when he felt like he wasn't supposed to ever get beat if he played his game, which was probably pretty close to true. But, I wish I had a recorder when we were mic'd up, when we were playing doubles, on what he'd say after a bad roll, coming back to the chair, or if he made a mistake or whatnot. And Lord knows what he was saying when I made a mistake playing the doubles. But
did he give you the Dennis Graba treatment?
Yeah, but I look at it. Hey, we're professionals. If you don't look at this as a prime opportunity to play in the greatest team event in sports, maybe, then you're not prepared, mentally, I guess. I knew back in the day, we all knew that to do certain things or not do certain things when Earl is involved, don't argue with him, kind of like thing, but we're, like I said, all professionals, very, very thick-skinned professionals, very prepared to play. And if you look at the overall goal, if somebody on your side, if you're going to look at that and blame that as something that brought you down, well, you probably got to toughen up a little bit.
Earl can be a spark plug the other way, though. Earl can be a spark plug on the other end. That guy goes and gets a win, and every one of those Europeans on paper is going to be favored over Earl. So if he goes and gets a W on him, he can go and spark the USA the other way to kind of be that engine for him.
Yeah, Jim, how quiet would you be if Earl comes out and whitewashes Albin in the first singles match?
Listen,
talk about sending
Earl Strickland is one of my heroes. When I started watching him, before I went to my first Mosconi Cup, I was sitting at home watching it, and it was Earl Strickland. Earl Strickland, Steve Davis, Jimmy White, and Earl Strickland was the man. He was, it's like Jeremy said, he'd go out there and if he played his game, nobody could touch him, and he created shots and did things that people didn't even realize were possible on a pool table. He came up with shots that people still can't play, and it was one of the best moments for me. 2013, I think it was, when I went over to Vegas for the first time for Moscone, and Earl was in the team. The fact that I was getting to see Earl Strickland playing live, and listen, I want Europe to win, but I want to see everything about Earl Strickland. I want to see the full thing. I want to see him have a blow up. I want to see him throw his chalk, smash his cue, but I also want to see him play Earl Strickland pool. I want to see him play the way that he has done. That he can and he has done over the years. I want people to see that. I don't want to just see the bad side of Earl. I want to see that a little bit because it's good to see, and that's Earl Strickland. But I want to see him run racks as well, and I want to see him play shots that others can't play. And I want people to stand up. People who maybe be watching it for the first time or who are in that crowd for the first time seeing Earl Strickland play live. I want them to be going, "Oh Jesus, this guy's 60-year-old, and look at the balls he's making. What a beast!" Because he still is, and he's quite easily the best 60-year-old that's ever played the game. Simple as that. He was probably the best 50-year-old, the best 40-year-old, and he's still going. I want to see all of that of Earl. If he wins 5-0 against Albon, I'll buy your drinks for the entire night.
So
5-0, 5-1, and 5-2. They should all be included. Throw them all.
They're all included.
Any win's going to be huge
They're all
for Team
considered a
USA
whitewash.
from Earl Strickland because he is going to be a dog going into it. But he's that unknown, and his ability to go and run a 9-ball rack is
crazy,
up there with anybody in the world right now. You saw a little bit of him at the International. He can run a rack in 2 minutes. Maybe chalk one time, and that's it.
Well,
he's going to go with the 16 millimeter shaft. He's going to go and just run out once he's in line. And it's a race to 5, man. That I think that's the beauty of it. And there's so much upside if he does go and perform well. That on an emotional level, that you can go and say that he's going to go and be there for Team USA and for those young guys too. But I think what does help is that Shane and Sky have their own successes in their own right. So, I think even though Shane may be the one to kind of go and check him a little bit, if there needs to be that way, they've been their own person, and have had successes on the table. So, and let's be real, this may be Earl's last trip on a Mosconi Cup or on a matchroom stage. So, I think he.
Well, we thought that a couple of years ago as well.
Besides like a U.S. Open, like a Mosconi Cup or like a World Pool Master, that kind of deal.
Let's not forget, everyone talks about like Jason and Phil are being these really quick players and exciting to watch. Strickland's 60 years old, and he's still as quick, if not quicker than these guys. This guy is, when it comes to rhythm and getting himself into that flow, he's as quick as anybody. There's very few players on the planet that are quicker than him. If they are, they're missing, because they can't play at that speed. The guy's an enigma. It's just incredible what he can do. I'd like to ask Jeremy, who got the pleasure of calling Earl and telling him he was in the team?
Oh, that was Shane.
That was Shane, was it?
Yeah.
I would have loved to have heard his reaction, because I think we talked about how much of a surprise it was for certain people that Earl got picked. I'm betting it was probably a bit of a surprise for him as well. He must have been delighted.
I can just imagine how he says, probably, really? With that high
pitch? Did he have a heads up that he was like even in consideration? Or was it just like, was the call him finding out that he's in? Or did he know, like, hey, you're being talked about right now?
Well, he first, there's some protocol. You got to find out the guys are willing to do it. You got to find out, of course, with these times right now with the protocol, with the COVID and all that they're willing to go through the testing and different things. So, there's a pre-call before the call, but him, just like some other players, they knew they were in the mix. They had a good shot. Didn't want to really put too much pressure on players prior to the international, knowing we were going to pick, during and after the international. So, but there were just like before, he had to have a call prior to make sure if he did want to do it, just in case he was picked.
Yep. All right.
But
so
one thing I'll add about Earl is he's got that level of play, and he's not going to be afraid to shoot what he feels like is the right shot, whether it's difficult or not. And I know that sounds like something that all players should have in them, right? But I've been in the mix to where players settled, fear of missing, whatever you want to call it. oh, I'll play safe on the next ball. That don't get it at this level. You got to play safe here and there, but safety is kind of like last resort kind of thing. You got to be looking to clear the table, and Earl's not going to be passive. Not only is he going to be smart, but he's not going to be passive. And to be honest with you, his technique, he knows that slick table real well too. So that has a huge, a huge mark when it came to picking him. Because honestly, the situation that the U.S. is in, that we had a lot of guys real close. So we looked at technique for the table. We looked at a lot of other variables that you may not look at normally.
So we got about 140 people watching right now. If you have not done so already, please give the stream a share. If you appreciate Jeremy taking the time out of his day and all of us sitting around trying to inform you guys with what's happening in the pool world, please give it a share. So now I want to talk about, I guess, some people who missed the cut, and we all know a few of the names, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the players who didn't make the team. And
Mike is smiling over
there. And maybe a couple words about not only the obvious ones, but some of the next generation. I know Devin Poteet's name was thrown around quite a bit, and he has some serious potential for the team in the coming years, even though he didn't make this year. Why don't you take a little bit of time to talk about some of the people who were, kind of in that final cut of players that didn't quite get there?
Yeah. Well, Devin was definitely a guy that was being considered. He needed some results, and he had some results. But he's a guy that progressed. He's a guy that matured a lot in the last year and a half. Working very hard. He is also a guy who's very comfortable around the top players. He's been around them since he was 15 years old and competing in some big events since he was very young. So big talent. I think a guy that will definitely make Team USA one day, if not one day very soon, because he's a hard worker and his upside is huge. And he's another one of those guys at a young age that just needs to be around the top players for a good spell and keep working hard, and he'll definitely make the team. Then you got Oscar Dominguez. I'd love to have seen Oscar play a few more tournaments this year to try and make the team, of course. Busy guy, family. He's got a lot of priorities as well. And, I think Oscar, he's a player, he's a fighter. He's a guy that, can get, upset if you don't make the team. Hell, there's many years that I was right in there going to 10, 15 huge tournaments a year trying to make the team and didn't. So it's not easy, but he's a smart guy also. And I think he realizes that maybe he didn't play enough tournaments to maybe make the team, or maybe not in the position to make the team because of some participation. But that was, that's just that. Then you got Jeremy Sose, who was a very difficult one to not pick this year, in my opinion. It came down between him and a few other guys for that last spot. Another name that we threw out there was Tony Shohan, believe it or not. A lot of people wouldn't rate him. Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't rate him as a really quality 9-ball player, but I think he is. I think he's a guy.
He is.
If he goes to a bunch of events, I think he's a guy that even at 36, 37 years old, without the profile of the top 9-ball players, but I think he's a guy that can make the team. And he's definitely a guy that I think sets up well for that arena and that table. Who else am I thinking of here?
With one cue, he'll break with it. He'll jump with it. He'll shoot with it. With the one cue, he'll do it all.
He'll put all 9. He'll put all 9 balls in the same pocket.
He plays great rotation. Tony's a very underrated rotation player.
He plays.
Yeah, and he gets up for the big matches in rotation. Mm-hmm. If he got up for all his matches like he does when he's considered an underdog, probably gets down in the finals a lot more often in some of these rotation tournaments. Now the U.S. Open and some of the bigger ones, that's something he'll have to grind through to make his name in those bigger events. But I think he's very capable of it, and I like the way he thinks. You got guys like Chip Compton. Chip's another one that I think. I'll be honest, he wasn't very much of a consideration for this year, but he's another guy that I wish would be out there playing a lot of those tournaments. And then I don't know any of you are keeping up, I'm sure you are, but there's a lot of great juniors coming up here in America.
Some great ones.
I'll tell you one thing that many may disagree with me on, but Europe's more organized with some things, some other places more organized, but I still see more actual talent in the U.S. When it comes to like something that looks like a natural stroke, somebody that has a huge upside, keep putting that structure with them. I think U.S. is going to be in a good spot for the Moscone for the next several decades.
They need proper guidance. I think that's what's missing. They need the proper guidance from the correct people.
Absolutely.
That's where the difference is. A lot of them, they take the wrong path. They go left when they should have gone right. They look for the short-term success rather than the long-term idea. And I think if there's a correct group or the correct organization there to guide these kids in the correct direction, there's going to be in any big country like the USA, or if you take a continent like Europe, there's going to be on average around about the same amount of talent. It's about how you nurture that talent and turn it into something proper, and I think that's where the difference is. Yeah,
I think the efforts are there. I think it's a learning curve for those people trying to give that guidance to the juniors. They put tournaments together. Kids want stuff to play in. I think the tournaments are coming around great now. To really the next step is to put the infrastructure with those tournaments. You got to have something that's really building them when they're not at those events, and because those events, even as a junior, as a pro, there aren't as many events as we'd like. Just imagine how many events for the juniors there are. So it's something that, like I said, that there are a lot of great people doing stuff with juniors, but I think they're actually learning as well, just like we all are, how to kind of covet that next generation. So I would just say, let's keep trying to learn and we'll figure it out. It doesn't have to be exactly like Europe does it. I promise you.
No, Europe does it just a little bit better at the moment, but there's no reason to say why there isn't an even better way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I really, I don't live in Europe, of course, but I keep up with some things, and I really see a lot of talent in the U.S. And I feel like it's just as much as anywhere else.
Yeah. I was gonna say I see two names thrown out in the chat that I personally really like. I love Justin Martin's game, and I really like Shane Wolford's game. Is there anybody else, maybe including them, maybe not including them, that you do have on your radar for next year?
Well, I watched a lot of the juniors. Of course, Childress played well. Hollingsworth played well. There's some other kids on the East Coast that are playing really well. The radar with those kind of kids is, at some point Shane was Shane, and then Shane became SVB, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing is, it doesn't take long sometimes, for one of these kids to really turn that corner.
Might just be one tournament.
Well, yeah, a lot of dedication or just a bell going off in their head when they're practicing for 8 or 10 hours at a time. I went to Roanoke after the International, spent a few days there, worked with a few juniors and did some private lessons. And I watched Shane Wolford over there at his pool room practice. And that's the kind of thing it takes. Now, it'd be great if he had somebody in front of him all the time or a lot of the time to help him. But for these guys that, that end up being one of the top players in the world or one of those greats, doesn't always have to be that, they got a top professional instructor in front of them all 24/7. It's just like greatness happens how it happens. And if we all knew how it happened, well, there'd be a lot more greatness.
We wouldn't be on a podcast.
but there's a lot of things that you're going to see the next few years. You're going to see a lot of great players, and then you're going to see a few that are just those upper echelons. And Shane Wolford's a guy that I think has a good chance. I'm very superstitious. Sorry, I don't want to jinx anybody, but there's a lot of juniors out there. You got the Martinez brothers that are very young here in Texas. Gabe is only 8th grade, I think, which is pretty incredible. And he runs racks. His brother Laz runs racks. And I don't know if you can tell, but I can tell with the JIC and the junior things going on that they're starting to become a little competitive thing between those juniors as well, which is exactly what we need to push them pushing each other.
Okay.
Molina Mike, what you got?
I know Emily kind of hinted at more of a maybe a proper system in place for Americans as far as rankings. Is that something that you're in favor of, to maybe take all that stress and off of your shoulders when it comes to picking some of these guys and all the headache that can go along with it?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, it's correct anyways. Whether I like it or not, which I do like it. Whenever I qualified for the Mosconi Cup, we did 3 off rankings and then 2 off picks. And I think that's the perfect solution, is the 3 off rankings. The only reason I say that is, hopefully you got some smart guys in the lead for each team that, sometimes, you look at that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kind of group of guys. It's not necessarily tournament points or wins or whatever you want to call it that really defines who played better in our sport. So you got to be watching in between. Now, those top 3 guys, you could say, yeah, there's hard to fluke out and be the number 1 ranked American, or you should definitely be deserving of some spot in there. But yeah, I think the players want that. I think the promoters want that. I think the fans want that. I think everyone wants to see credit given where credit's deserved. And
For sure.
I think 3 off rankings and 2 off picks are the correct way to go.
I think it also gives, I mean, you're talking about the new players. You mentioned a couple of players that were there in your thoughts, like the Tony Choans and Devin Petit. They're all in your thoughts for a Mosconi Cup, but it's kind of the same as Alex. A lot of the time, the deciding factor is experience. So you end up not picking these players because you would rather go for somebody who's been there before and seen it before and done it before. So if you have a ranking system where there's 3 that goes in, then everyone's got the same amount of chances, and then it's on them to prove that they're good enough, and then you can pick your last 2 based on the 3 you have and create a team from that. It's a better system. I think it gives more players a chance to qualify to get into the team, because it's very difficult to get into the team as a rookie if it's all wild cards. If I was to pick the European team, there wouldn't be a rookie in it.
Right.
If I just wanted to win the cup, I think for the expansion and for the growth and for the future, certainly on the American side, because there's less of a depth of player that there is for the European captain to choose from. The pool has to get bigger. The group of players that have the experience and that have been there and done it has to grow. But it's very difficult to be that captain that says, "No, I'm going to stick 2 rookies into my team," because that's a tough decision to make.
You're going out on a limb.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you gotta go with your gut a little bit. You got to give your gut a lot of good information, just like last year with Chris. He was a rookie, but I was around him a lot, some other guys, and I just, my gut told me that Chris has got the best chance to perform well out there and win us points. You read my mind, though, there, Jim, that, yeah, if you have 3 off rankings, then you kind of mold your team around those 3 with the next 2 picks. And like I said, you got to be smart, because, if there's a guy that come in 4th or 5th or whatever, but you can't ignore what he did, well, you got to bite the bullet, because this is professional sports, right? You can't ignore some guys what they've done, and the other guys got to go with it, whatever your choice is. But I do like that you'll pick up probably 1 guy that really fits in the team, along with plays well. Along with those 3 that maybe come from rankings. And then, a lot of times when it comes off 3 off rankings, one of the 4th or 5th picks does come from the guy who's ranked in that 4th or 5th spot. It's a hard thing to ignore a lot of times, and it's usually accurate. So the good thing is,
a lot of the time it's a difference of 1 match. They may well have just played each other in the last event, and that's just made the difference. I mean, there's very, very, very fine margins.
Yeah. That's why you got to watch the matches. You can't just look at the win-loss part of it. You got to look at the battle. The battle means a lot, especially going into the Moscone, because that's what it is. It's a battle. Every point, every ball, you're battling. And it's a shorter race. So we all have differences of opinions on what it takes to win out there. And, the opinion I got is I want a bunch of guys fighting.
How much did you learn about Chris last year?
How much did I learn?
Yeah, considering it was not really a proper Moscone. You know,
Well,
how much can you take from that?
Well, I can't take a ton from it. You know, I'm not one to discard things, but maybe more people on both sides, both teams have told me, man, let's just put that Moscone away. You know what I mean? I think Europe wants to come out and win this year just as much because of the lackluster of last year's Moscone with COVID and everything else. So I don't think they want to win as much as we do. But as far as your question, I probably learned as much from Chris before and after the Moscone as I did during the Moscone. I kind of felt like he was going to play pretty well. But the one thing I learned from Chris is we made a couple major changes in his technique for the 3 or 4 months prior to the Moscone. And for a professional of any stature, whether it's a youngin that doesn't have all the titles in the world or some of the oldest guys with all Hall of Famers, it's a very hard thing to do, to change your technique in some ways, especially leading up to the biggest event you've ever played in. But I'll tell you, the kid's got a lot of resolve, and he's a hard worker, and he's going to get better and better. But yeah, I learned a lot from him. And
it looks like he's working even harder now, and he's certainly more active on social media now. And he seems to be. It seems to have given him a real proper boost to really to make a career for himself now. You know, I've noticed a change in him since Moscone, just on how he is publicly as well. And I think he really feels like he is in that upper echelon of American players now.
Yeah, I think so too. And he's steadily getting better. And I think Chris is a young guy that's super humble, super nice. But you know how some people, they just take a little longer to come into their personality, right? Not saying Chris is trying to pick out a personality or anything. He's far from that. But, he's still maturing. And probably the best thing about Chris is he recognizes all that. He recognizes he's still maturing. He recognizes mistakes going to come here and there, but he's willing to put in the time and work hard. So I think Chris has a lot of easy decisions in his life, and that's going to lead well towards the Mosconi Cup.
Panozzo, what do you got?
Oh, good stuff. I think I want to go backtrack just a little bit because it was brought up a little bit earlier in one of the comments, and I thought it was an interesting observation. Is last year was kind of a downer of an event, but even that aside, the team really didn't play that. They didn't look that into it last year. They didn't looked like there was not a lot of structure or real concern on the team going forward. They seemed to get beat pretty early mentally. So what did you learn from your first run as the head coach last year, and what are you going to do differently this year as far as managing the teams and managing the locker room and their attitudes?
Yeah, well, no excuses for last year. But there were some factors that didn't play well for us. We have a guy like Skyler who definitely practices a lot more now, but he was a guy that relied on tournaments to stay in stroke. He went to a lot of events last year. We didn't have many of those. Of course, some COVID things happened. A bunch of guys didn't think they were going to pass the COVID test to go. So, the wind got knocked out of us as a whole a little bit. Maybe more than anything to make sure that doesn't happen. I think we're in a good spot in that regard. We got a lot of tournaments to play and a lot of competitive fire. And, one thing that I know we're going to have is a very prepared team. One thing that's all, pretty much the only thing I've stressed to the guys since we've been communicating as a team is I just got to have prepared. I don't care what happens otherwise. We go out there prepared, hitting a lot of balls, doing our drills. Most of the guys, Skyler has his own little exercise, but most of the guys are putting in the exercise as well. And just be on top of it more daily, I guess, Mike. Last year we had the guys come to the house, each one of them trying to make the team and then also train. And I think some good things happened there, but it needed to be a little more hands-on afterwards, making sure things were happening. But, it doesn't sound like such a big difference in our team from last year, but I think it truly is. I think a loss after a couple wins for a few of the guys really burns, no matter if the setting was a little light or not. So I feel better about things. I hear a little different outlook from guys. I wouldn't say it was a conscious effort to make huge changes. Like, I don't want to just throw last year away totally, but we have a different complexion to the team. And like I said, being prepared is a big part of this team.
There was a lot of hill matches. I don't think that 11-3 score really reflects like the amount of fight that the Americans had going into the first 2 days. I mean, I know it's a win and loss kind of deal, but I mean, 5-4, hell, I mean, flip the coin. That could have gone any way you want.
Yeah, there were some unfortunate losses there. Of course, the lags get talked about anytime you lose 5-4, but there were games in those matches that we could have won some of those, but yeah, it was a lot closer than 11-3, but 11-3 is what's getting written down. So
right.
We got to look at that and make sure that 11-10 is a great loss, or whatever you want to call it. To me, 11-10, 11-3 is a loss. So we're out there to try and win.
It.
Yeah, we're out there to try and win. I mean,
I want you to take
down. I guess that's a Mosconi Cup will get talked about, but it'll be talked about a lot more by the team that wins.
Sure. Take off your Mosconi Cup coach hat for a minute and put on the pool analyst hat. Is it fair to judge the American coach based off of the hurdles that you've had over the last 2 years as far as the team goes?
Say it again. Is it based what?
Is it fair to judge the American coach like the record based off of the hurdles that you've had over the last 2 years with players?
Yeah. You can judge me. That's for sure. I accepted the job. There was no, they didn't put no fooler on me. I knew the cast of players that I was going to be up against, and I knew the cast of players and possibilities over here. Of course, I'd like to see that cast on our side be a little more involved at times and have more players to choose from. But like I said, right now, Jeremy Jones as a captain is 0-1. So that's what I want to change. And, anybody that wants to can certainly pass judgment on that however they want. But they're allowed to. That's for sure. Like I said, it's a loss. We got a loss. All we can do is try and change that.
It's been a lot, though. Like you've had to dodge a lot of bullets, jump through a lot of hurdles with everything.
For sure,
Yeah.
If I was the boss, would I give Jerry, going into this year, would I have given Jeremy Jones another chance? I would have, yeah. But at the same time,
even going into this year too. I mean, no one's going to question whether or not you get to pick the 5 best players the U.S. has to offer.
Right.
I mean, we don't get to pick Justin Bergman. We don't get to pick Billy Thorpe. We don't get to pick even like a Mike Duchesne type of player. And you can talk about the character issues there if you want, but the point is he's a great player, and you don't have access to these players.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some missing parts that or I say missing parts. Listen, missing chances to maybe pick a player here and there, but. Last year I thought the job I did was decent. Like I told the guys, my mentality needs to be stronger. I got irritated at a few times I shouldn't have. I'm a pretty passionate guy though when it comes to my team and my losses and wins. I'm going to stand up for the guys no matter what. Just kind of like in bonus ball with the Earl thing back in the day. So, but yeah, I got to improve. I got to get stronger. Mentally, I got to not show any weakness out there, because just like you talked about with Earl, if your captain shows, there's a time for a coach or a captain to talk to whoever it is, but I got to be pretty strategic in that point as well, and not let emotions run too high, because that's the one thing about us Americans. We'll be sticking together out there, and I don't need my players' emotions to get up too high either. So. But to answer your question, yeah, you can pass judgment on me as a coach. I saw some flaws, and I got to remedy those.
I think looking at last year from an outside view, the impression I got. I mean, day one was pretty even. I think both teams struggled with being in that arena with nobody else around. And I know that on day two, that Team Europe made a concerted decision to try and create their own little atmosphere and make it and be more vocal. And I think that kind of worked for them. It didn't seem like Team USA really got to grips with the silence and the there being nothing there. You know, you've got a Billy Thorpe in there who wants to interact and wants to get the crowd going. And now you've got Sky there who reacts to Billy getting the crowd going. And I think that was a big loss for the USA, not having that extra, you know, even if it had been a European crowd, to have somebody to have a crowd to react to. I think that took away a couple of the big strengths that the USA have in the team. And I think you saw that. It was easy for the atmosphere to drop with the players. You saw the way that the way they were sitting in their seat, that the only people they had to talk to or interact with was other players around who probably weren't enjoying themselves very much either because they're slightly behind in the match. And it just seemed to snowball a little bit. And then the 5-4s happened, the hills happened, and it just gets on top of you. That's how I saw it a little bit from the outside. I don't know if that's how it felt within the team as well.
Well, you know, in 2018, when I first got on as assistant, people asked me, and media whatnot asked about, you know, trying to win the cup after so many years of losing. And I thought going right in the heart of London with 2,500 fans is exactly where we needed to be to try and win the cup. I think that's a USA atmosphere. I thought the team we had, that was a USA atmosphere as well. And, you know, you can look at it on paper that, you know, and the bookies or whoever you want to talk to, the Euros are going to be a favorite. So I think also that's where we play our best in comparison to maybe any other teams in the world, is with a bunch of fans hooting and hollering, first off. And then also, if you look at, you know, a team that's a little underdog on paper trying to go in there and win a cup, well, you're talking about variables. Anytime you add more variables, well, it's more of an equalizer, right? So I think those variables of the Euro crowd it's a big variable, and the energy you see. Shane, you know, he turns them off, but don't think he can't feel that energy, and don't think he doesn't revel.
You can feel the vibrations when it really starts going.
Yeah, exactly right. And you know, the problem is, of course, there's the pitfalls of when you don't perform well, but you know, that's worth the chance of when you do perform well in that atmosphere and what it can make you do. So I think you definitely, it was easy also when things didn't go well to even though we didn't do it consciously or vocally, it's easy to, in the bottom of your stomach somewhere, kind of disregard the Moscone, even in the middle of it. You know, that, hey, this ain't the Moscone anyway. You know, you could easily say that to yourself. Yeah. And that's where probably my job should have been a little better, reminding those guys of where we're at, even though it doesn't seem like that's where we're at. It's still going to go down in the history books, and it's still something that we should revel in no matter what's going on. So,
yeah.
Well, Panozzo, you got anything?
No, I'm good.
Yeah,
Does anybody have any more questions for him?
No, I think that was good. Jeremy, we appreciate you coming on and taking the gauntlet from all of us.
Bad at all.
What's the score going to be?
There you go.
Well,
What's the score going to be?
Yeah.
I got one more question on the way out, too.
I think like 11-8 US. So,
ooh, I like it. So, all right, Jeremy, here's the situation. You guys are knotted up at 10-10, and it's coach's pick. Who do you want to see out there for Team USA, and who would you like to see out there for Team Europe? As a fan, we'll put it
as a fan.
Oh, so as a fan, everybody wants to see Earl play that match. Come on.
Yeah, right.
Everyone wants to see Earl. I think you should let the captains play each other.
Yeah, well, I'm leaving my cues back in Texas, I think. So. Let's see. Probably. I think Shane Filler probably for the last match. I think that's the one that would bring the most energy, the most greatness on the table, probably. What's that?
Shane's had a tough go against Filler. How do you feel about that confidence wise?
Well, anytime they want to tee it up, I ain't got a lot of dollars, but I
Let's go.
I think
there you go.
I think the point is, if you ask Shane, who do you want to play in the last match? I bet you Shane picks Filler.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. And like I said before, I wasn't on those teams, or wasn't in the practice room with those teams that lost for many years. And Shane was on all those teams, of course. And but I was there for a few of them in Vegas, and I just get a different feeling with that guy. And I don't know if it's because of how he's playing. I felt like he's made some conscious decisions the last year to improve his game. But I think he's very excited about playing pool, and I think he would love that challenge of playing it. Whereas a few years ago, I'm not so sure if he would have been like, "Hey, pick me for the Hill." I've been on some teams where it looked like we were maybe going to have that, and we had a few players that you couldn't even find. Like, where'd they go? Let's talk about this. Nick Marr was the captain, exactly, and that shows you how big the moment is. And not saying anything bad about those players at all. Those was, I played with some of the greatest that I've ever played. But that's a moment that we're going to see one day soon, and I think Shane would be. I think he was born for it, first off, but I think he'd be really ready.
I think obviously both sides want to win. I want Europe to win, but and it's like Alex said last week. Hill would be the perfect scenario.
Absolutely.
If it goes Hill in the USA win, fine. If it goes Hill in Europe win, great. But for the Mosconi Cup, Hill that would just be the place. The roof would go off the Alexandra Palace if it goes Hill. That'd be amazing. I got one more question. You said 11-8. Yeah. 11-8. So it's 11-8 USA at the end of it. Earl Strickland is MVP. Is he a lock for Vegas next year?
1,000%.
Well, I mean, if it was he's 60, so we got to make sure things go, okay throughout the calendar for any 60-year-old. But
he's a lot.
But yeah, probably so.
Easy, son.
But
easy.
Probably has a really good chance of making the team. Yeah.
Excellent.
That's a win, boys.
Here you go. Here's some Mosconi Cup trivia. When was the last time there was a Hill? Anyone know?
2006?
2007?
Second year.
Oh, Mike Panozzo. There it is. 1995.
Second year. 16 to 15.
I guess it wasn't. I was thinking of the tie. Is what I was thinking of. Was that?
Oh yeah, the tie was the worst one ever.
Yeah, right.
2006.
Yeah,
2006. That's what I was going for. That's officially that's Hill. I mean, come on.
No, there was no Hill decided. That was 16 to 15.
What do you mean? It's still Hill from
still Hill. They just didn't play the Hill match.
Yeah, well, I guess technically can't argue with that, can you? Jim. If it goes Hill, that's less time at the VIP after party. We get to party then.
Mate, I'll be partying for the entire week anyway. It doesn't matter to me. I don't need any extra time.
Yeah, well,
fair play.
I just hope we have full stands. That's the main thing. For me, anyways, for our team wants them. They want them. They want as many as Alexander Pally can hold. So
I'm pretty sure
we're bringing 30.
I'm pretty sure your third pick guaranteed a full stadium. I think.
Oh, there we go. Good.
If there was any doubt about whether it was going to be filled or not, your third pick just sold the last tickets. I think that's what the guy does.
Part of our calculations, so I'm glad at least something worked, right? So
don't worry, we'll be gentle with you as always, Jeremy.
No, I want you to keep at it. I look at the London fans kind of like the Yankee fans, can turn on you a little bit here and there if things get a little sideways.
I thought that was the Philly fans. Booing.
Yeah, Philly doesn't pay attention. I went to that stadium once before. I guess they got a new one now, but Oh my God, that was the worst stadium I ever seen in my life.
Whenever you have a jail in the basement of your stadium, that's when you know you got a real stadium.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, I think they built a new one since, but what was the old one called? Vet Stadium? Veteran? What was it called?
Veteran Stadium.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Veteran Stadium.
Yeah, Veteran Stadium. Yeah, I went to that one time. Oh man.
Do you know already? Do you know already whether or not the players will be sitting in the usual in the fan area during the match? Or are you going to get your own area? Are you being kept away for COVID restrictions? Are you being put in your own bubble?
Yeah, there's nothing final on that, but we did discuss it the other day. I'm pretty sure we won't be in the fans area. We'll have our own area. I don't know if it'll be right inside like 2019 in
on the benches. Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing. Kind of the situation will be. But yeah, we won't. I don't think we'll be in the arena seating.
No.
Do you have a selection for a fill-in pick? Or are there more than one selection? And will a sixth player actually be over there?
There's not one that's 100%.
Put your hand down, Nate. Put your hand down, Nate.
Hold on, there's a button down here somewhere I can hit.
No, there's your Hill pick. There's your Hill pick sitting right there.
Yeah, right. So there's nothing definite. Of course, there's some players in mind. Hoping not having to cross that path. It happened last year, and it was unfortunate for Justin that happened last year. But yeah, it's been talked about. We didn't want to set anything in stone because we just don't know what that situation will be at that time. But did tell a couple of players to be ready, of course, and then just kind of go from there.
But no extra players coming over with you.
No.
What's that?
No extra players coming over with you just in case someone needs to be like mid-tournament.
No. Oh, mid-tournament. Well, mid-tournament now. That's a different situation. Of course, we'll be pretty isolated overall, and we're going to be very smart about it. Match room is set up to where we can get our practice in without having to go out into the public a whole lot. So I think we'll be in a good situation. But no, there won't be another player traveling for mid-tournament. But of course, we'll be going a week or so prior. So if someone doesn't pass the test, we'll address that situation then and have another player involved.
Okay. You might have to take your cues with you just in case.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you can hit a straight ball. I'm pretty sure you're still pretty good. You've been there before.
I was always a guy that practiced a lot, Jim, and I don't get to practice very much. So,
Carl Boys will have his cues with him just in case.
Well, I ain't gonna lie though, I certainly like that setting when I played. I mean, I know people get nervous, and I got nervous as well, but I loved it so much, that setting. Maybe it was a slick table. I understood it. I don't know what it is, but I still feel like I could play pretty darn well with a little preparation.
The Captain Scotch double, make it happen. Come on.
Yeah, right. Hey, I'll take SVB.
I was going to say that.
No,
you got to play with Earl.
What have they told you about the kind of little warm-up match with the two women?
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Is that going to be a spots and stripes again, or are you going to get one?
Say it again.
Are you going to get the spots and stripes warm-up?
No, they're doing like Mike said, with a couple of ladies. They're doing a warm-up match, and then some other talks were discussed about another warm-up, but I don't think we're going to do anything official with like a Great Britain team or anything like that.
And so the match with the women, I imagine that's going to be kind of in closed quarters to keep you guys away from spectators and that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's too bad. I would like to see the women be able to experience some of the fan drama that goes along with a Mosconi Cup.
Well, I could probably
not with Telfer out there. You wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm gonna say seems like Jim and I could probably find our way into that. We could be loud enough to.
I'm playing it.
It's 500 or 600 fans.
It's on the Friday before, and I'm at a tournament, so can't.
I don't know all the details, Mike, but there may be some spectators involved. So
seems like Jim and I could get in there and get drunk enough to be loud enough for a couple hundred fans. What do you
We're
think, Jim?
friends. Listen, we're friends with the women as well. We'll be all right.
There it is.
On that
All right.
note,
Well, Jeremy, I think we can let you go. We
Okay.
appreciate you joining and
Yeah,
chatting with
absolutely.
us. So
we appreciate
I
it.
don't know, you guys, the rest of you guys, you want to hang out for a little while and chat about what we just heard, or are we just gonna kick it up here?
Fine with me. I've still got half a bottle of wine here.
You're the boss.
There you go.
You're the boss.
Well,
Jeremy,
thanks
thanks a lot for
guys,
chatting to us. I'll see you in London. All the best. I mean that.
Yeah, thank you.
Obviously, I'm on my side of the fence, but I really hope you guys perform, and I hope your team works well for you. And I hope it's a great match.
Yeah, it's going to be a great week, and I think it's going to be one heck of a match. So thanks for having me, guys, and go USA. And just let me know if you all need some more time.
Appreciate it, Jeremy.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Hey, we need some new music this year, Jim. You're on that.
I'm not a DJ. I just sing stupid stuff.
Yeah, but you know some good suggestions, right?
He's working on
I'll
it.
talk to the DJ. We'll get some proper music for you.
There you go. All right, fellas.
All right, man.
Bye.
See you, Jeremy. Well, you can do it, Jeremy. You got this.
There you go.
All right. So, what we learned? Does anything jump out to anyone? I guess I'll start it since I guess one thing he did say that jumped out to me was when Mike asked him whether or not he should be held accountable for the kind of bad luck he's had the last few years, and he said absolutely. I thought that was kind of an interesting answer to that. Of course, you know, it doesn't really sound very good if you take the opposite side of that, but you know, he owned up and took responsibility for the last year, and you know,
It'd be fair. if
definitely
you had
set it up to where.
Yeah, but it'd be fair if you had the other side of the coin, like. And I'm not saying it to go and give him a pass. You know, I love the accountability though, like you said, but that was something that was on my mind. But it's tough because that's his job, right? So for him to go and kind of have a little bit of perspective when it comes to answering that question really just shows the kind of person he is. But I mean, we all know it's been a difficult 2 years to be a coach of that team, you know, for a number of different reasons. So I don't think like that. I don't think last year nor this year is going to be the best 5 American players that you can go and put out there to go and face a monster of a European team. And it's no fault of Jeremy's. And I guess that's what I wanted to get an answer of what his thoughts were.
You can certainly make an argument that Europe is putting up their 5 best. And you can't ever make that argument that the U.S. is putting anywhere close to their 5 best.
I mean, if Fleckner was there.
Back on that Max train.
Yeah, clutching at straws.
I just got to throw that in there.
Clutching at those straws.
Got to throw it in.
Yeah. We should just pick 5 rookies. Yeah, fuck it. You know?
I think Jim should be on the team.
Yeah.
But
I'd love to watch. You want to talk about Earl antics and chucking your cue and chucking your chalk? I think Jim would be a proper Earl. He'd be like
the thing is, I'd be throwing my stuff from still sitting in my chair because I wouldn't get to the table. You know?
I don't.
We talked.
Go ahead, Jim.
We talked about it last year after the Mosconi Cup last year, and the question was asked: should Jeremy be given another year based on what happened at this Mosconi Cup? And we all unanimously said yes, because it wasn't a real Mosconi Cup. We all know it wasn't a real Mosconi Cup. They all looked flat. The Corey situation coming in for Bergman at the last minute, he didn't look prepared. He looked a bit surprised to be there. You know, the atmosphere was flat. Europe didn't play great either, and America kind of it looked like they gave up a little bit early in the match. Now, the 11-3, we can talk about.
Played pretty well.
He was allowed to play quite well. I mean, he did get away with some missed shots as well, you know. We talked about the Hill matches. My only criticism that I would have for Jeremy from that one is he didn't have a moment where he was able to bring a spark into the team or find some way to get a spark in. Alex and the European team, they decided to be more vocal kind of thing during day 2 to try and get a spark and an energy within their team. And they felt stupid doing it. I've spoken to them and said, I felt like a right idiot. I'm cheering and shouting and I'm screaming at the camera when the only person that's watching me is the other guy behind the camera, and they felt a bit stupid doing it, but it was just trying to create an atmosphere. Now, I think if Jeremy had managed to create some sort of fight and some sort of passion within his team, then they wouldn't have won the match, but they could have made it a lot more of a more respectable score. That would be my only, they may well have got out of it 11-6, 11-7, which doesn't sound as bad as an 11-3. And when you lose 11-3, then the questions start getting asked. And it does come on the coach. It does go back to Jeremy. As he said before, it's his job. It's up to him. He won't have this issue this year because the crowd will make sure that the players stay engaged in the match throughout. I think it's going to be closer than people think. And you could Mike can say that Jeremy shouldn't be judged on this year's Moscone either. There has to be improvement. There has to be. You can't lose 11-3 again.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I don't think I wouldn't get into that. Like, I'm not saying you can go and just lay an egg out there and get a pass, but I mean,
he doesn't have to win.
Reality is, yeah, exactly. I mean, he said the right things, right? There's no moral victories when it comes to sports, but this isn't their best foot forward like it is for the Europeans, and that's just it's fair to go and ask it. And I think he knows, what he has to do to go kind of push some players' buttons and, pump the brakes on others. He's going to know his guys and what needs to happen. And he was very open and honest and critical about maybe, things he would have done differently last year. And I guess for me, that's what I want to know. I mean, that's what I wanted to hear rather. Let those two go and switch sides, and then we'll see who the better, like, quote unquote, coach is.
That's what I was going to say. The situation they're in just now, if Europe loses, Alex is going to look like a failure. Jeremy doesn't have to lose the match to look like he's made a success of it. If he can make it, if he can get to 11-8 and take it to something exciting on day 4, he'll have done a good job, and his players will have done a real good job. If Europe get beat, they've played badly. The coaching has perhaps, it will go back to Alex, and it'll be Alex who's not reacted to certain situations properly. So it's different. I mean, it's not a win or lose that's going to dictate success or failure here.
What do you think, Mike? Because you're a little bit more old school when it comes to stuff like this.
Okay, you want to say hello?
No, I think that Jeremy's. Like I said, I don't think he gets a pass this year. I think that they've got to perform better, and he's got to show that he had more control and more influence on him. We're talking about, he's not able to go in there with his best team. Well, I think we got to get used to that. I mean, is Bergman an option going forward? If he's not, then let's stop talking about him. Is Billy an option going forward? I don't know. I still haven't gotten the edict, the verdict on his punishment. Mike Deshane's not an option going forward. So you got to play the hand you're dealt. And again, like I said, if Bergman's not really an option going forward because he doesn't like to travel, doesn't want to be tested, doesn't like people, whatever the case is, then just move on. So at that point, you got to have your team ready.
Because he knew Telfter was going.
you got to have your team ready, and you got to be able to make the right adjustments or show that you can make good adjustments during the event. And I didn't think he made good adjustments last year. Jim pointed out a couple of them, and I thought it was fairly obvious that the team kind of fell apart, and he didn't do anything really substantial to pull them back together. To me, he's on the hook a little bit this year. Alex is a professional. If they lose this year, people are going to point fingers at him, but Alex isn't going anywhere. He's the perfect fit for those guys, and he's a great coach and a great person, and he would have them back on point next year. Can't be fired every time you lose a match.
Well, I mean, I think if Europe were to be in a hole, like, no one's hitting the panic button. If USA gets in a hole, that can completely take the wind out of their sails.
Right, and that's where he's got to be. That's where he's got to be a great captain. That's where he's got to be a great captain. He's got to make sure that they don't go off the rails. He's got to make sure that if Earl does something really stupid or calls somebody out in the practice room, that he knows right now, before before he gets over there, that he knows how he's going to react and what he's going to do to turn the table back in his favor. He's going to have to. It's more of a chess match for him than Alex, for sure. So and that's if I'm a coach, I would look forward to that. I mean, those years that Marcus was able to trot 5 guys out there and set them aside and wear a Napoleon hat, that's easy stuff. I could do that. A guy who likes to be captain, who likes to coach, who likes to win events, he's got to relish the opportunity to be put up against it and come out with the right answers. That would be the nuts if you're a captain.
I don't know, Mike. Are you outgoing enough to be a clown like that?
I want to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it was I'm not the mascot type. And I love.
Let's
great player, but it was just that was just get your guys to the arena on time and get out of the way. So.
But let's take this team that they've got this year. Let's say Earl behaves himself. He keeps his emotions under control, and he plays.
You're a fiction writer. Huh?
He plays no. Let's say Earl plays pretty
Mike's
good.
Mike's just brutal on Earl, man.
Okay. Maybe the chance is small, but let's say Earl goes out there and he plays decent pool. We're not talking like 1990s, early 2000s Earl, but we're talking about
win a point.
He focuses and he gets down there and he plays good pool. Is this team weaker or stronger than last year's team?
Stronger.
So you can't be losing 11-3 with a stronger team.
Yeah, agree.
That's my point. There has to be improvement. Jeremy doesn't have to jump from getting beat badly to winning it, but he has to show that I'm making adjustments. I'm looking at the schedule that I'm putting people in the right places. I'm putting out my top guys in the right spots, and I'm making my good couple partnerships. And I'm getting the team playing as a team, and they are fighting right till the end. Because even fighting till the end can still get an extra 2 or 3 points that makes the score, look like, which didn't happen last year. You saw Skylar playing his match. As a coach, I'd have been furious with Skylar the last singles match that he played, because he was sort of smiling to himself as if this is just stupid and I'm not interested, and he was banging balls into the rail, and it just didn't look.
Playing with his mullet.
Yeah. Well, I don't care about the hairstyle. Let's see, people talk about it. I don't care about that. People say that's disrespectful and not taking it seriously and doing this. I don't get it.
Disrespectful.
I don't have a problem with gimmicks. You can be a gimmicky person and have a gimmick, but you best back it up. If you're going to put yourself out there as having a gimmick, you better back it up by playing well. You see the dark. We have it in the dark world. We have players that have their own gimmick. They have the special shirt. So there's one guy that's got a Mohican with a snake all down the side of his head. You can't do that if you're rubbish, because then you just look stupid by doing that. You have to back it up by playing well.
Yeah, I think that's where
they were coming off back-to-back wins. They could do whatever they want.
No, they can't.
Yeah. On back-to-back wins, they got the skill set to go and win.
Do it there.
They did back-to-back years.
Yeah, and then
Europe didn't show up. I mean, Europe did not show up. They were 3-1 favorites on the money to go and win both those years. They came up flat. They dogged it. Period. It don't matter what hairstyle, what cue they were using. It don't matter. In a race to 5-9 ball, it can go and swing whichever way you want it to go and swing.
Yeah, but that's it, and that's why it's fine margins. So if, as a coach, you have to be able to just flick it onto your side. Just do something and be able to make small adjustments and react at the correct moments to make sure that the next one flips on your side. Yeah. And that's what a coach is there for, because it is fine margins. So you have to be able to react to situations. You have to be able to read the match, read your players, and say, okay, don't do what Marcus did and just sort of be, I'll be all right in the end. We're not going to lose. It'll be okay. And then all of a sudden you've lost. You've got to get in there at the right moments and do something. I
don't envy Jeremy's spot, because it's like if you go micromanage, you may look like you did too much. If you didn't do enough, then we're crucifying you for being too passive and not going and doing enough. At the end of the day, they got to.
And you're up against it with Europe.
Yeah,
that's coaching in any sport.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, you've got to know when to push the pedal, when to push the brake, when to do this,
Right.
when to do that. And, you know, the main thing I think what Jim's pointing out is improvement is in things like, you know, if they get a little down, do they show fight? If they, you know, if they need a point, do they get a spark? And a lot of that comes from the captain. And so just want to see him do a better job of controlling the team and pushing the right buttons. And they still might come up short. But if it looks like there was, you know, that the team, you know, fought for every freaking ball and reacted the right
those
way.
are the guys you want to be in your foxhole. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
so,
you
know,
that's one thing Johan did well with.
You can never be criticized. You can never be criticized if you show fight and do the best that you possibly can.
Right.
Win or lose, you're going to get respect for that, and that's been missing.
Can't wait.
It's getting close. It's getting so close now. I can almost feel it. I can't believe you're not going to be there, Mike.
Yeah. Well, that's both of us. Neither one of us.
Both of you.
There, right? Yeah.
I've got to put up with this idiot for a week.
Yeah.
I want to see that alcohol bill.
He's going to be in a corner. A nice flip there, mate. He's going to be in a corner in his own vomit.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. I had to throw you into that. I apologize for what I had to do right there.
I'll hold up my end.
Yeah. And you know what? The more that I've sat and thought about it the last couple of weeks, the more that the Earl pick just sort of it's. There's something about it. It could be the most genius thing that's ever. I don't know. It worries me. It does worry me. It worries me a little bit.
How it's going to go.
I just want Earl to do well. I want Earl to do well, and then I'm gonna go and interview Panozzo on day 3, right before just to get his thoughts on it.
You guys got me wrong. I'd put Earl on the cover of the magazine more than anybody in the history of pool. And I love Earl, and he does still. You know, he played great this year. I talked to him for a while in Norfolk. It was cool to talk to him again. He was telling me about his, you know, the redwood tree that he uses for a cue, and it was, you know, it was great. And I think he is excited, and I think he's got himself convinced that he's going to go there and he's going to be a different person and all that stuff. But you know, we just have to wait and see what happens. And I'm going to be worried until the last ball's hit because it could get really bad. I mean, it was, the last time he played, it was the last time he played in 13. Well, I remember 13. It was awful. It was awful.
It was pretty bad.
And I remember, the last couple of times he was, World Cup of Pool or World Pool Masters, any of those things, they weren't good.
Yeah.
He was good at this U.S. Open. He was good at for the most part. So, maybe at 60, he just doesn't have the energy to be as cantankerous as he's been in the past, and maybe the wheels won't come off. And if that's the case, then it'll be fun to watch. And I'm not wishing bad on him at all, because I want to see Team USA play well, and I want to see him be a positive impact on the other guys. I think that would be a cool thing to watch. I'm holding my breath. That's all.
I just look giving you a hard time, Mike. That's all.
I'll say this: if the U.S. is going to lose 11-3, and I'm going to be in the stands, I might as well get Earl to entertain me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. God, I hope it's not 11-3.
And if Earl shows up and plays great, Jeremy looks like a genius. We're back on the, we're at least back out there to competing, and I get to rub it in Jim's nose.
Yeah, there you go.
Once I sober up.
Boy, if they win, I'll buy the first ticket in Vegas. If they win, I'm telling you.
Look, at the end of the day, we want the Mosconi Cup to win. It's what we want. We don't want it to be a blowout every year. Either way,
Yep.
And it goes through these periods. We've talked about the periods where it's all America or it's all Europe. You just want it to be competitive. As a fan who's going to be there, I want a competitive day 4. I want it to be exciting.
Well, how about that hypothetical that I gave Jeremy, and he said Shane versus Filler. If that happens at 10-10 and Shane wins, could you imagine what that does for the Mosconi Cup? Like the U.S. winning when they weren't supposed to at Hill.
Again.
Shane finally beating the demon of Joshua Filler, beating off that struggling
Mike's already getting written
against
it out.
Filler for a while. Are you kidding me? With what would happen, the world would blow up. With they'd take NFL off ESPN and it'd just be talking about pool.
I would be. I've got to be completely honest with you.
We'd be averaging 50,000 viewers per show, live at any given time. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we'd be the man in payment.
If it goes to
we got
Hill,
the Manscaped coming in.
That's
We'd
right.
be the Stephen A. Smith and Mike Wilbons of the pool world. It'd be great.
Yeah.
I think if it goes to Hill, and you're the European coach, if you're Alex Lely and you know that Shane's going to get picked, which you would imagine it would be Shane, you're not picking Filler, and I don't think Lely would pick Filler either.
Jason.
I like Sky.
I like Sky and Filler. I'd like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sky and Filler, or to be honest with you, I wouldn't be. If I was Lely and I knew it was going to be Shane, to be honest, I might pick Albin.
Yeah, but you know what's going to be the most interesting one this year? The most interesting pick this year is going to be the fans pick, because that's always been Shane. Shane has always got the fans pick.
Shane and Jason.
Seriously, the amount
Shane and Jason, it's already decided.
The amount of Europeans that are going to vote for Earl because they want to see Earl play again. The amount of Europeans that are going to vote to get Earl on the table for one more match.
But every American,
I'm telling you,
It's gonna be Earl. I'm with Jim.
Whether or not the fans pick is actually a fans pick or not, we nobody will ever know.
Whoa.
I'm not saying anything, but
Wow.
I'm not saying it's not, but
Emily.
Yeah, I'm not saying
they may tell you to hold up at the door there at Alley Palace. You better relax.
I'm making no accusations. I'm saying in some sports, these things have been known to not exactly pan out the way that it is supposed to.
The frozen
Earl's going to get a boatload of votes off the European side. The guys that want to see him play again. I'd vote for Earl.
No. Let's wrap it up before Jim gets in any more trouble.
Yeah.
I don't get in trouble.
I don't want our entire group banned for Jim's stupidity.
I said allegedly. I did not say it happens. I said in other sports it's been known to happen.
All right. Well, with that accusation completely unfounded.
It wasn't an accusation.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in again, and of course, please share the streams as we come out with them, or even now works too. Get it out there. Help us build the show. Today, I think we had the most viewers we've ever had. We were up to 185 at one point. I don't think we've ever had that many for a live show. So
It's all about the guests.
It's all about the guests. It's all about
it's not about us.
Killing it. Yeah.
It's not about us. It's all about the guests.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
What do you say?
Next
Next week we have Earl on.
No, next week we did. Next week,
make it happen.
we just put a photograph. We just put a photograph of Earl and watch like 300 people just sit and watch a still shot photograph of Earl.
And we'll call Joe Rogan and have him do the voiceover, and we'll.
There's Ronnie.
We can talk about Ronnie for a while. Anyone want to talk about Ronnie?
No.
He needs to shave his shoulders and get a decent pair of shorts.
Oh god, this show just took a dive.
Those shorts
On that note,
are
boys,
so wrong.
I'm out of here. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Take care, everyone. See you next week.